And we're now recording to the cloud. Eileen, do you want to share your deck? Hello, hello, hello. Hi, hi to everybody who's on live stream. You sharing, Eileen?
I'm sorry, yes, no, it's just, I'm definitely thinking about it.
Right, well, everybody's going to come in. It's fine. Hello, everyone. Aloha. Uh, Hope you're well. It's time for another hothouse, I think. Yeah, shall we hit it? Keep going. Right, hello, hi, and are we ready to go? So that was a bit of low key. Does anybody else hear that music then? You give me a yes or a no. You heard it. Okay, it's just me. I'm stuck in a different place. It's Hot House on tour. Anyway, let's crack on. First session then from today. Hello, John. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm fabulous. New background because we've been decorating. So there's new carpets and paint and chaos everywhere.
All right, super. And you're going to, Eileen, you're going to crack on with the news section. You can
I
see
think
that I'm
so.
not in control
I
today.
know this is all kind of, highly high tech. I've got to press the next slide button. What a responsibility for today. But yes, I think I can do the news for John.
Right, okay, John, do you want to take it away?
Hey gang, how we doing? Welcome to your news roundup. So yes, there's obviously news from my house. New carpets are in. We kicked the squirrel out of the attic, so all of that kind of stuff is happening. The squirrel in the attic was an unexpected issue that arose on the project, and you'll be glad to know we've dealt with the change control around it accordingly. But that's probably not the news you're interested in. So as usual, I've been scouring the internet, scouring the journals, seeing what news is out there, what's hot and happening, what's interesting enough to share with you, because I appreciate you're all busy, and what doesn't quite meet the mark. And I've been filtering that stuff out and ignoring it, so you only get the stuff that's valuable today. Let's dive in. I've got three things for you, and as usual, once I've gone through it, I'll drop into chat here the links and papers and things. For anyone who's listening on LinkedIn or YouTube Live, do make a point of heading over to the House of PMO website and the events page on there and signing up for the next one. The big difference there is you get access to the Zoom link, which means you're in my chat window, so I can see you talking and asking questions, and you'll see the links that I'm dropping in there afterwards for you. Okay, first one up from the Harvard Business Review. You'll need to be doing fewer projects. At least that's according to Antonio, who I think many of you will be familiar with. He's talked of here before in various places. It's a good article and a good reminder, and there's some useful things in there for portfolio PMO leaders. This is a challenge that probably comes to a lot of organizations this time of year as people are preparing for, certainly those that want to run a January to January cadence. Everyone is furiously now looking at what the portfolio needs to look like for the next 12 months, having those kind of debates. Everybody wants to shoehorn another 15 projects into the mix, and everyone conveniently ignores all the projects that are still running from last year, which still need resource into January, February and beyond. So this article is probably quite timely for a few of you. If that resonates, it's worth having a quick look. They recommend sort of 7 steps to actually reducing the number of projects down. The rationale for reducing the projects down is it gives you space for change to come in. And if we reduce work in progress, we speed up delivery. 7 things there. So firstly, making continuity and continuation a conscious choice. And I challenge you to ask your sponsors, would you still recommend this project to the board today? You may have done it a while ago, but do you still do that today? And if not, then the logical thing is, should we actually carry on doing this project or not? forcing trade-offs at stage gates or key points in the project, treating every single idea as a project. So you're doing that short-term evaluation before moving things into projects. It recommends pulling small squads of people together to actually assess those at an early stage to decide whether they're worth doing or not. Whilst we tend to think about projects and killing those, killing off ideas is probably equally important, lest they sort of keep dragging people into them and distracting before they formally become a project. So looking at how you can kill things very, very early on if you can. Advocates time boxing your projects, so shorter rather than longer projects, ideally the 3 to 6 months mark. Now, obviously, that depends on what types of projects you're doing. If you're doing big infrastructure projects, mega projects, clearly that's not realistic. But generally, the tighter you can time box things down, thin slice those projects and deliverables, the less likely they are to slip. And you've got those decision points every 3 to 6 months on whether you want to continue, pivot, or stop against them all. The people side of things, rewarding stopping as a career enhancing signal of good leadership. It is a good thing to kill a project off. It's not seen as a failure of the individual. It gives people more confidence to kill things off when needed. There's a few suggestions in the article about KPIs and things that would help you spot weak projects. Declining sponsor attendance at board meetings being an obvious one there. And lastly, looking at how you restaff projects. So people on strategic projects that are being killed off can be worried about what that means for their jobs, their career potential, those kind of things. So actually making it clear to everyone that actually if we do stop a project, we've got landing spots considered for you. It makes people more comfortable about flagging their concerns about things and maybe saying maybe we should be killing this one off. So a good article to read, quite timely, especially if you're planning for your portfolio for the next 12 January there. Diving on swiftly to the next one. And this is sort of quite an interesting one here. Projectification versus deprojectification. Made up word versus another made up word. This comes from the International Journal of Project Management. They've done a special edition for August focusing on projectification. And they've kind of got a counter essay in there about deprojectification. This is something that's been talked about at a macro level for many, many years now, where basically they've been looking at more and more work being turned into projects rather than being operational work, and the pros and cons of doing that, and versus the other side of things from the agile community in particular, who are very traditionally anti-project, are far more about arguing that we should deprojectify things. So this is it. I've gone through a few of their articles in there. If we just jump onto the next slide, and probably the slide after that, I think, magic, and the next one, we can get straight into the sort of key points. So I've read a few of the articles in there. There's quite a lot in the journal, as always. There's some good reading. And there's a great article about projectification where they've basically taken some research that was done, I think it was 10 years ago, 10 years ago, where they looked at projectification in Germany, Norway, and Iceland. And they looked at how much of the work in the economy was organized as projects. That was 10 years ago, and that was kind of when projectification was kind of getting very interesting as a term, and a lot of people debating it. But what they've done here is basically taken that study and they've revisited it. So they've used the same methodology, looked at things again. What they've found, key findings I've just noted there. So firstly, they're saying, well, actually, there's evidence that doing work as projects actually enhances flexibility strategically, so you can move and change faster. It's something we kind of know, but it's good to see that playing out at a macroeconomic level. It boosts innovation and strategic capacity planning. So you've got by bunching things up as projects, you're actually seeing more innovation there because you've got projects that you can start and fail quickly if you need to. And it's unlocking strategic capacity at a macro level because you can put work out as projects to different organizations, bring in that strategic capacity you need through the projects that you're running, rather than hiring people and gradually upskilling through a lot of civil servants that you might have in your government organization. And the last thing they've noted is, firstly, the amount of work that is projects in the workforce. They've estimated that through the research that's done as being about 33% of the work that's done in Germany, Norway, and Iceland is currently organized as projects. Now that has gone up over time, but they have also noted that it seems to be plateauing at the moment. So we're probably at peak projectification at the moment, across those three countries at least. There's no mention here of what's happening in other environments like Africa and other countries as well. So it'd be interesting to see how they compared. And the last thing they're calling out is the increased professionalization that comes with projectification. Gosh, I'm glad I put my teeth in today. Where you're seeing PMOs in their certification and a lot more discipline around how we actually deliver things, which they believe is helping with that flexibility, strategic delivery, and everything as well. So that's the kind of pros that are in there. If we switch on to the next slide, some of the arguments for deprojectification. I think that's the last time I used that word, which will be a sigh of relief for me. So there's an interesting sort of operational efficiency paradox where it feels, when we pull people together into a project team, it feels like we get traction faster. We rally people, we swarm around a problem, we deliver it, then we close the project down, which feels really, really efficient within the project environment. But over a long term, operational work is generally more efficient. And that's because you get the incremental improvements in there over time, a focus on improving quality, all those kind of things. So there's an interesting trade-off there where it feels faster to do things as a project, but actually if you're taking a long-term view, maybe an operational approach is a better one for you. So there's a balance there that needs to be considered carefully. Not everything should be a project, and some things are a lot better if they're long-term and incremental to be taking a more operational lens to them. Employee well-being risks. There's a bit of talk in this one where basically if you're slicing people between multiple projects, putting a lot of pressure on people on projects to hit milestones, it tends to be perceived as a much more stressful environment for people that are involved. And I can see Eileen nodding there, and I'm sure a lot of you have had this first-hand experience as well. When people are squeezed, constrained against a lot of projects, we constantly tell them that it's going to improve after we get past this next milestone, but there's always the next crisis large project happening. So that's something that happens a lot with projects that you don't see so much in operational, where you're doing a lot more work to actually make sure the work you're giving people is sustainable. There's a value shift towards sustainability. People, where projects were the big thing, there seems to be a lot more perceived value now in stability in organizations rather than run fast and break things. People are looking actually at their organizational structures to be stable, sustainable. Can we deliver long term rather than can we just rush something out, break it, and jump onto the next thing? And I think that ties in with the evolution of the internet and various technologies that have stabilized over time, certainly over the last sort of 20 plus years that I've been involved with tech and everything else. And the last one's an interesting one here. I've put PMO question mark on this one because they've mentioned the erosion of continuity in ethics. They've cited that as something that comes with hand in hand with projects. Again, certainly the continuity is a thing I recognise, because you get to the end of a project, you stop, and then you lose that traction. You only need to look at sort of NASA, where they've run the Apollo missions as projects. Those have stopped, and now we're trying to get back to the moon, and a lot of that the knowledge that was in those projects has been lost, and they're having to relearn things. The other one's an interesting one with ethics, because you sometimes get projects that are so focused on delivering at any cost. And because it's kind of an entrepreneurial environment within an organization, or run at arm's length from an organization, you can see people playing more fast and loose with some of the ethics and values that the organizations hold dear. So projects might be moving slightly away from them and breaking things more than an organization would necessarily feel comfortable with. There are ways around that. APM has got values, PMI has got values, the bodies have got values, House of PMO has values as well. So there's values there that try and counter that from a professional body perspective, but there is something that's still seen across projects. So we're going to put PMO there with a question mark, because that's probably an area where PMOs should be countering that and making sure we've got the right things in place around our projects to ensure that actually we do have the continuity, lessons learned being passed forward and everything else. And we are ensuring that the projects that we're running are adhering to the ethics and the values of the organizations and bodies that we operate within. So a few things there. Do have a look at the in Journal of Project Management. A few interesting perspectives on there about projectification and deprojectification. Then on to the last one for us. Now, I mentioned this. So I mentioned the National Infrastructure and Service Transformation Authority last month in the context of them showing their portfolio online and showing a portfolio dashboard. They're back again this month because they've released their annual report. By definition, it comes out annually. But what's interesting this year is they've actually, rather than a long report, they've only gone and dropped a dashboard on us instead. It lays out, they've got a report in there which is very succinct, showing where they're spending money, what's changing. But what they've also dropped is this dynamic dashboard of everything that's happening with it, and this does seem to be the way that they're looking to go going forwards. Why is this interesting? Well, two things. For those of you that live in the UK, it's good insight into what's happening with the major projects that the government are focused on. For those of you that run PMOs, it's a great way of looking at a live dashboard of major projects and see how other people are presenting that information to their stakeholders. There's a lot in there. I'll share the link in a second, but the headline page is screenshotted on the left there. That gives you a top level summary and then the breakdown by the different sort of the different ways they've segmented their portfolio. And on the right there, you can just see just a sort of snapshot of some of the trends and breakdowns that appear in the next tab along, where they've got various graphs showing the cost of projects over time, what's happened to projects that have come into the portfolio, out of the portfolio, the red, ambers, greens, and all sorts of things in there that if you have a look through, I'm sure all of you will find at least one view of the data that might be an interesting one to consider how you can incorporate into your portfolio views and whether it would be valuable to your stakeholders as well. So I'll share a link for that one as well. Interestingly, for people in the UK looking at how government are spending your money, I've noticed that the number of projects that NISTA are overseeing has broadly stayed the same. But if you look at the top here, the cost of those projects seems to have gone up dramatically over time. I wonder if that's a trend that other people are seeing with their projects as well. And I wonder whether that's scope creep or whether that's actually a more honest view of things, given that we're early in a government cycle there. I will leave you to ponder that one at your leisure as you go through the data. That's it from me. Those are the highlights. I will share links to reports and dashboards in the comments shortly. Otherwise, it's back to you, Eileen.
Thanks, John. You said it back to me. I'm only pressing buttons today, but I'm happy to press the next button and see where we're off to next, which I think is Lindsay.
Big responsibility, Eileen.
Over to you, Lindsay.
I'm out and about, am I? Right, yes, I'm out and about. And it probably doesn't sound the greatest, but I'm stuck in, I say stuck. I'm on my way back from Glasgow, basically, today, where we were an in-person event yesterday. We worked out it's the first time back in Glasgow since 2019. Would have been obviously earlier than that, but something called the dreaded pandemic got in the way and kind of scuppered stuff. So we basically obviously love Scotland. We have our lovely conference there in Edinburgh each autumn. So we love getting up there. We were just trying to get people back out doing things. So this was a new one for us. Eileen, if you just press just the button once, I'll give you just some little snapshots will be coming up. This is an interesting one for us because we've never done this type of in-person event before. Because we actually got to have a look at what the tangible things are that the PMO has been supporting over the last and we talk specifically about the last 7 years, but there's been so much stuff that they have been supporting, and we got to see some of it from the old in terms of the kind of things that they have to look after. I think it was, I don't remember the exact figures, but something like 124 graded buildings. So that's the old stuff, as well as doing a lot of new things as well. So we were able to have a nice tour for about an hour and a bit, which was great. And, got to learn some of the stuff in the background. And you can see here, last thing that it's just dropped on one of the newer buildings in the background, and still more work to be done. They have done so much stuff. But we got back into one of the new buildings and then actually listened to them talking a little bit more about what the PMO has actually been doing, so what it's set up to do, and essentially how they've changed over the last 7 years. And if you just hit onto the next button, Eileen, one of the things that we wanted to talk about, because they were sharing their journey, is basically where they started out in 2017 to where they are into the present day. This is Mandy, who did the presentation. She's a PMO manager there. And she shared this. I'm not going to give you loads of insights, because obviously we're going to be sharing this in the members' library. But there was just a couple of things that stood out that I did want to share. She was talking about their team. So yes, it's an estate, it's campus, it's buildings, and what you're seeing on screen right now is the makeup of the people that make the team. If you just hit it one more time for me, Eileen, you can see this role on the bottom left in the middle. It's something called a soft landings manager. And what struck me is that we're not just talking about, yes, this is, capital, buildings and constructions and things. But when we was talking about this role, soft landings manager, I'm like, hold on a minute. So what they're talking about here is the bridge between projects into business as usual. So the bit where, a new building or a new department, faculty, or whatever is getting handed over. So this, to a lot of us that are not working in that kind of space, would be kind of post-implementation type stuff, that handover period. Bit where actually most project managers walk away. And most PMOs don't necessarily look at this piece either. And it's actually quite a nice title, but it made me think about, well, this is where all the stuff is about the change management stuff, about how projects and the outcomes of it are then, utilised by the end users. There's the benefits realisation piece in this bit, but they also had other little things that they're, other things that they're doing to make it a smoother transition. So I thought, that's quite nice. I'm going to look at that more, because I think there definitely is. Why do we not have a specialist within the PMO that is focusing on that gap? I get that project managers are moving off, but PMOs are there for our remit is to support successful delivery. And we know we're doing a lot more stuff that kind of makes that bridge into business as usual. So I think it was really, really interesting what you pull out of somebody else's experiences. But that was an obvious one. But I want to delve into it a little bit more to see, so what do these people do normally on construction projects, and what can we take away in terms of the kind of things that they're doing? Because we could be missing stuff. I think we probably are. But next slide. So we're going to, that was the thing that kind of popped out to me that I quite liked. But we also did an interactive exercise, because what Mandy was talking about is that their PMO journey, she started 2017. And when she first started, it was very much a supporting PMO. For anybody who's not familiar, these definitions that you see on the screen now about what kind of PMO, they come from predominantly from PMI. I don't have the links or anything, but maybe one of you, Eileen or John, could probably find it. Is the different types of PMO in terms of the kind of approach that they take, rather than just saying, oh, it's a project work and portfolio type PMO. So they started very much as a supporting PMO. So, what I would class as, doing the kind of, making sure that we have the method in place, and that people know where to go for a template. And the PMO is very much doing a lot of kind of like minute taking, action tracking, all that kind of stuff. They then changed just before the pandemic into a controlling PMO. Worst decision they ever made, an absolute nightmare. A lot of the work that they were doing, they wanted to move away from just being that kind of administrative support. For controlling PMO, didn't work within the environment. Project managers started staying clear of them. They started thinking that they were the PMO police. But then since then, they've moved very much into number 4, which is where they wanted to get to. It's taken them a while to do it. If you just hit on the button again, Eileen, because we did a little interactive exercise session, and you'll see a scenario that we shared, which was just, obviously get people thinking about, if you took on a persona of one of those types of PMOs, how might you have dealt with this scenario? So, something for people to go at. But if you just click off it again, Eileen, one of the things that came out of the feedback after the exercise is that you recognise that actually, when people sometimes read about these different types of PMO and that you're going for a certain type, what becomes really obvious is that actually the PMO is taking bits from each one of these. They are not just I'm a critical event PMO and we don't do any of that other stuff. But what becomes really obvious is actually there is a mixture of things that PMOs are doing because of the context in which they're working, the different types of people they're working with, and the different stakeholders need different things from the PMO. And I think it was really obvious to us listening to that session, but 2017, there was a direct link between the maturity levels of the project management capability. And over the 7 years, that maturity level of project management delivery has gone up, and therefore the types of PMO has also changed over time. I don't think many people make that link, but I also don't think many of us, if you were coming into PMO quite new, maybe becoming a PMO manager from a different part and getting used to what is PMO, and you're reading things like this from PMI, you may be thinking, we need to get to number 4. That is something that we have to aim for. And I think the realities are, and listening to what people were talking about yesterday, is that actually you do take bits and pieces from different places. We have Alan on the call. Alan, you were there yesterday. I don't know if you just want to come off mute for a second. How did you find it? I mean, you were there as a PMO flash mobber.
Yes.
How was it for you? What did you take away from it?
I think it's the little things that you pick up. I mean, we did the tour, we walked around the building, and while we were walking around the building, we were all talking. And it's the tiny little things that, you realise there's a building that was built in 1870, and you're thinking, how can you manage projects with a building that's from 1870? The listed status on that must be terrible. But then you've got new buildings as well, so you've got new build, you've got old build, and this PMO is having to manage projects for both at the same time. So it really is the little things, and it just getting people together was really, really good. That's the important bit. The conversation over pizza was amazing. We also went for typical up in Scotland. We went for a little drink afterwards, and the conversation kept going there as well. And the conversation kept going on the underground as we were going back to the hotel. We were going, so that's the good thing about the flash mob. If anyone's not been to one before, it doesn't stop when the session stops. The conversation keeps going. And even on LinkedIn, Mandy, who's on the Zoom call just now, we've connected on LinkedIn. There was another chap who came from London. I've connected with him. We're having a conversation. So, the flash mob just keeps going.
Super, thank you very much. And Mandy, I didn't realise you were on the call, so thanks for joining us, and fantastic session. And we know we're going to be learning more from you, but thanks very much for doing what you did. And just another one, actually, I'm just going to call it out. Mandy had never really done this before. Mandy was really nervous. And I know you're going to love it. As soon as because you are, talking about a subject, a lot about, inside and out, and then she smashed it. Nobody in that room knew just how nervous she might have been. But that's another shout out for anybody who's listening to this, both here in the room with us now or out there on LinkedIn. Really do think about coming in and sharing your story with us, because it might be a really nerve-wracking thing to do, but I promise you that you're talking about something that inside and out, and you're never going to have another audience that's hanging on your every word to find out about what you've been doing with your PMO. Yes, it's a room full of geeks, so but anyway, yes. So more to come from the insights and stuff. There were loads, so we'll be sharing those really soon. Yeah. That was me out and about, still out and about. But yeah,
still not home yet, but we'll be at some point after a nice weekend. Okay, then. So I'm just going to do a little bit. Oh, that plays so slowly. I forgot we used to pop up at the bottom. So this was an idea that we kind of we cooked. We were thinking about what to do over the summer holidays, and for the first time, we actually did a summer series where we did 3 webinars that were all connected around a particular subject. And I just, in case people miss them, I'm obviously kind of got time to do the 3 hours worth of stuff here, but I did just want to point to them and suggest that you go away and go, not now, obviously, at the end of the session, but go and find them in the library because they're all there. So we did a series on present with confidence, and interesting kind of, we've just had that kind of conversation about kind of Mandy doing it for the first time. And what we had is we had 3 sessions that looked at kind of how can we all become more confident presenters, because it is a skill that's listed in the competency framework. It's something that potentially we all have to do, not least in terms of our teams, but presenting about the project, you know, kind of whether it's a portfolio officer, we're kind of doing some work with a on the prioritization, presenting the status report, or it could be actually kind of develop some training that we're delivering out to the delivery team in our project. So I just want to kind of pick out kind of the key things that we did. So the first one, and we broke down it, as we said, into 3 sections. The first one was all about kind of how to put your message together, and we covered off kind of quite a bit in terms of kind of how you might structure your message, and it's one of those interesting things. It's really easy to kind of start talking and you could probably kind of blather on for a long time, but actually kind of creating some structure about kind of the start, middle and an end. And was really interesting. Lindsay introduced us to a number of various structures that we could use depending on the types of story that we could tell. And it was just it helps you, because what's really interesting is when you're a trainer and you try and use somebody else's slides, if you haven't got the story in your head, the slides look all disjointed. So even though it makes sense to you, having some kind of formal structure allows people to follow through and see how things are connected. So that was the first session we had. The second session we had was on materials. We did have a lovely slide about me on my high horse about how people can and cannot use PowerPoint, which is always my bit. But I think what we covered off quite a bit in terms of kind of how to put that all together. But I think the important part for people to realize when we're putting together the various materials around a presentation, often people focus very much on the slide set and about having the right deck together. And what we covered off in quite a bit of detail said, actually, there's 3 elements to your materials, because yes, you've got stuff that's going to be there on your slides, but also you've got some handouts. And what is really helpful is thinking about how your handouts play with your slides. So if you're going to do a presentation, and we talked about it specifically, where we're presenting projects every week, we know that the audience are going to have a copy of all of the project reports. Why are we putting kind of a great big massive figures that nobody could read on the screen rather than just some of the key questions or the key issues that need to be dealt with about those individual projects? But then the third element, and again, because we're so keen on kind of presenting slides and kind of standing there and pointing to them, there's actually the script and what we say. So it's this kind of mixture of those 3 different elements, and how they come together is where we focus. And it was, as Lindsay and I found as we went through this, these 3 sessions, it was a good reminder. So even for those of us who do presentations on a regular basis, so Lindsay and I must do at least one webinar a week where we're kind of presenting something, but it was good for us to kind of go back and remind ourselves of some of the kind of the underlying kind of best practice principles for doing that. Then the final session we did was based on actually kind of how to prepare ourselves in terms of being able to do the talk. So this is about kind of how to do the actual kind of presentation. And again, we covered off a number of areas in terms of thinking about how we would prepare ourselves to go and do that talk. Again, making sure we've got our kind of speech prepared. And I think, and I have just now done the exact thing that we didn't talk about. We'll do the exact opposite of what we talked about, is actually about what surprises people is how slow you should actually speak when you're presenting to other people. It's very easy when you're nervous, and I've just kind of gabbled through kind of a few minutes there. It's very easy when you're nervous or where you've got kind of a set time to go streaming off at a huge speed. But actually speaking quite slowly helps to keep the audience engaged. Funnily enough, speaking slowly also helps you avoid doing because you're giving yourself time to think about the next word and the next paragraph and the next point you want to take. So it was quite interesting to go through again and just remind ourselves. So those 3 sessions are all available in the library. And we had somebody, it's you again, Alan, about you were on those 3 sessions. How did you find it? And has it changed how you're going to be doing some presenting? And we will give you the opportunity, we said, didn't we, as we offered everybody to kind of give a little bit practice.
Yes, so I was on the sessions, and I am Scottish, so I am trying to speak very, very slowly, but I will go faster because that's just what I do. Like I said before, Eileen, it's like it's the little things that you pick up. It's the tiny little things. It's like, I think in one of the comments we made during the presentations, we said, if you can see this slide, you might not be able to see it because there's too much detail on it. Well, we said, why have a slide like that? So I've taken that on board. I do training. I do training on particularly Microsoft Project. And one of the things that I do when I'm doing any content is I make sure that the screen is nice and large, nice and zoomed in, so that if I'm talking about something at the top, the file, the view, the task, or anything at all, it's zoomed in on that. I've got YouTube videos, which I do exactly the same. And the thing that I use on YouTube videos the most is the Zoom facility, because people have got to see what I'm talking about. There's no sense in just having a big screen with everything on it. And I think the other thing that's I realised from the training sessions that we did is it's got to be something that's of value to the person watching. It's all very well me thinking, I think you will like this. Well, I've got to get that kind of feedback. One of my videos has had 42,000 views. And can you believe it was how to change the default duration in Microsoft Project? Now, why that one gets 42,000 views and other ones get 42 views, I don't know. But obviously that's resonated with the people that are watching. A lot of people from America, according to the analytics. So maybe I need to start adjusting even things like spelling. Maybe I need to start spelling things with a Z instead of an S. Now, Eileen, I know you won't like that because you like your English properly, and I quite agree with you. But you just have to do that. Was the thing I took off from the sessions. You have to do what the audience actually wants.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alan. As I said, we the session was popular. We had a number of people who managed to do all 3 of those sessions, but we've made them available. And Lindsay, as ever, has also provided some additional help because she's pulled together a presentation planner, which is also available for download from the library, Lindsay. Sorry.
So yes, indeed it is. So you've got the links there. You'll see the deck. I think we put it together on the final one. So hopefully you'll find it really useful. And Alan, please do drop your links in because we want to now all have a look at what it is that you've done. It sounds great. But I think actually we should come back to YouTube videos. That's a nice little bit I think for HotHouse. Because I know loads of people are obviously using that kind of stuff to help with, bits and pieces of learning. So yeah, I think we should have a look at that, and we'll certainly I like yours as well, Alan. We'll be really interested to see what you're doing. Just while we're just looking, we're recording this, it's going out live on LinkedIn. We've also had some people commenting on some of the stuff we're talking about. I think it's a soft landings manager has got people talking. Shout out to Rod. It says, well, isn't this where the service transition teams come in? Perhaps it does. Maybe it does in your kind of environment, your kind of context. But Perhaps not all of them. Eugene, right? Yeah, excellent. How many PMOs explicitly only hand over to value realization? Too often projects stop at delivery when the real test starts after go live. Absolutely. So there's something here. There's something in it. Mark, shout out to Mark. Same issue, but only being brought in at the time of execution. Yes, PMO is also potentially struggling with that bit as well. But yeah, thank you for getting involved in commenting. We do stream live, obviously, on LinkedIn as well. Last Friday of the month. So yeah, thanks for that, Alan, and jumping in. Great summary and what you've taken away from it. Okay, next. It's packing it in today. Packing it in. PMO Pioneers, I think, is going to start having a little segment each month or way that we're going now. Eileen, if you just want to hit on to the next button, we're learning a lot about all these little AI tools, and I know you probably like some of this stuff. You know, there is so many. So at least if we can just spend a couple of minutes on bringing on some of this thing, you know, the things that are happening in the AI space. If you want to move it on, this is a little playful thing. It's perfect for a Friday, I think. Something for you to have a look at. Any Gemini users amongst us? You know, as you probably realise, there are different AI tools, Copilot, ChatGPT, and Google Gemini is obviously another one that's available at your fingertips. Did you know about Storybook feature that's come out again earlier on this month? It is the ability to take a subject and to create a short 10-page book to really simplify. So I thought about helping John to understand what Scrum is. John, I know this is a subject you know very well, but I thought, well, actually, just in case he doesn't, we're going to create this John and the Enchanted Scrum. Yes, it is playful. It is perhaps silly, but if you think about it, if there are subject areas that you struggle with, this is perhaps not a bad way to have a little fun with it, as well as being able to actually see, you know, take it. Well, it takes, yeah, just. Eileen, do you want to see if it will work? If you hit the house button there, that you'll see that nice orange house. Take us through to Gemini. It's Google Gemini, and as you probably recognise and realise, that anybody, if you've got a Google account, you can just get onto it and have a play with it. Yes, you can listen to it, but you can also flip it. Can you see the button?
John, a curious young wizard, arrived at the magnificent Scrumblewick Academy. Its towering turrets and enchanted gardens filled him with wonder. He was eager to learn all the castle's secrets. Soon, a kind and wise wizard named Alistair greeted him. "Welcome, John. I am the Scrum Master here, and we have a very special project for you to help with." Alistair explained, "We need to build a magnificent enchanted library for the Academy, but it's a huge task. We'll use something called Scrum to make sure we build it perfectly, step by magical step." First, Alistair continued, "You'll meet Seraphina, our head sorceress. She has the grand vision for the library, what it will look like, what magical books it will hold. She's our product owner." Seraphina showed John a long list of all her ideas for the library: floating bookshelves, self-writing quills, even a secret room for ancient spells. This was their product backlog. Alistair then gathered John and a few other apprentices. For the next 2 weeks, we'll work on a small part of this big project. We call this a sprint. We'll choose a few items from Seraphina's list to focus on. Every morning, they had a quick meeting. "What did you do yesterday? What will you do today? Are there any magical obstacles?" Alistair asked. This was their daily scrum. 2 weeks flew by. They had built a beautiful, enchanted reading nook with self-flipping spellbooks. "Time for our sprint review," Alistair announced. Seraphina came to see their finished work.
There we go.
John felt proud. He understood that by working together in sprints,
if you want to go back to the slide, you'll be able to
improving.
see from the slide.
You say that, there we go.
I love it. You can see, yes, having a bit of fun, take a really difficult subject, but you'll see there to the left-hand side, actually all I wrote was create a storybook which helps John understand what Scrum is being taught by a Scrum Master. The story is set in a Harry Potter style castle. That's it. That's all I've got. So yeah, have fun anyway. I'd love to see them. Scatter some about on LinkedIn. Get into our Flash Mob or House of PMO LinkedIn group. Share some of them. I'd love to see them. There is already one in there from I think it was probably a couple of weeks ago now. But I'd love to know what some of your difficult subjects are, if nothing else. But yeah, there you go. Nice little tool to have a play about. Okay.
I'm dying to see a PMO bedtime story for children.
Well, there you go.
It's got to be on the market.
Yeah. Over to you, Eileen.
Right then, I think that's us done for the day. It's we're looking at bang on 1 o'clock. You see, it does work where we want it to. Thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you all again in a month's time. If not one of the events before that. We do have a couple of events coming up. We've got on the 5th of September. We've got our PMO networking skills. And I'll tell you the date, on the 17th of September, we're going to talk about PMO tech in action, which I would tell you more about, but I'd need to listen to the session first before I can do so. Hopefully see you again in one of our sessions soon. If you've got any ideas, think we've got a series that we want to run for you, do let us know. See you all soon.
Press the button.